Chapter 30 Mirror Neurons. Mirror neurons were discovered on accident. In the early 1990s, neurophysiologist Dr. Rizzolatti was conducting experiments on monkeys at the University of Parma in Italy. He was using brain scans to see what parts of the brain light up when performing various activities. Something interesting occurred when researchers held up a peanut in front of the monkeys. The same neurons that are supposed to be used for movement started to fire off in the monkeys, even though the monkeys themselves weren't moving. The monkeys' neurons were mirroring the behavior of the human. From the brain scan alone, you would have figured that the monkeys were picking up a peanut. Dr. Rizzolati's work has been referenced in over 2,000 scholarly publications since then. One of James Altucher's greatest tips to be a public speaker involves using your mirror neurons. He watches stand-up comedy before he goes on stage. Stand-up comedians are very comfortable in their skin. They are charismatic. They make people laugh. If you could mirror a fraction of that, then you are much better off when it comes to speaking in front of large crowds. Introversion and extroversion are two words used to classify people. You may have already heard the terms before. Extroverts are more outgoing. Introverts aren't so quick to reveal their thoughts and feelings. These terms can also be used to describe where people get their emotional and mental energy from. Extroverts can be energized by large crowds, while introverts may feel overwhelmed by them. The introvert needs time to re-energize in their alone time, while an extrovert may feel a little anxious if they go too long by themselves. This difference in orientation to energy generation influences our tendencies to reflect on ourselves. Mirror neurons are necessary for self-reflection. A more introverted person may spend more time using their mirror neurons for self-reflection. An extrovert may be energized from others because they are picking up the positivity from other people's perceptions of them, using their mirror neurons to do so. Therefore, an extrovert may want to avoid negative people big time. Since the extrovert spends less time in reflection, they may be less empathic. That isn't to say that they do not have the same neurological machinery for empathy, but rather it says what kind of information stimulates them. As a consequence of self-reflection, the introvert develops a stronger sense of inner identity that does not necessarily rely on others to boost their self-esteem. This creates a double-edged sword because of one fundamental property of mirror neurons. The mirror neuron cannot tell the difference between itself and somebody else. I want you to read that again. The mirror neuron cannot tell the difference between itself and somebody else. In other words, an empathic person can very easily confuse their thoughts and feelings with another. Needless to say, your inner identity and someone else's perception of you are not always going to align. Whether the introvert realizes it or not, every time they are in public, there is a constant struggle between how they view themselves and how others view them. The direct consequence is cognitive dissonance, the unpleasant feeling of two opposing thoughts being held at the same time. Much of this can go consciously unnoticed, but the end result is that the introvert feels drained after too much social interaction. The battle to maintain selfhood has its costs. Extroversion is not without its double-edged sword. Sometimes there is nothing better than the enriching fellowship of our tribesmen. I am an introvert, and even I can be energized by the right conversation. I can go hours delving into my interests with others. Listening to others and gaining perspectives I would have never had on my own is priceless. But remember, when things get out of balance, our stability is put into jeopardy. To quote Mark Twain, whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect. End quote. Have you or someone you've known ever done something extremely stupid in a crowd of people? This is something you would have never done or seen if you were by yourself. Sometimes peer pressure can get the best of us. Sometimes it's something deeper. When a mob mentality forms, you better run to safety if you still have the wit to do it. There is actually an entire branch of social psychology dedicated to the study of this phenomena. It's called mob psychology. In bigger groups, we lose a sense of responsibility and adopt the behavior of the crowd, even if it makes no sense at all. The bigger the crowd, the worse it becomes. Like a virus spreading on a computer network without anyone knowing, mirror neurons are the medium by which the mob mentality propagates. When you can't tell the difference between yourself and someone else, and neither can anyone else in a crowd, what is actually driving their behavior? The answer to that doesn't matter. If you figure it out, then good on you. Maybe it was some mass hypnosis. Maybe it was an accumulation of raw desire that spread like wildfire. None of that matters. What matters is that you are safe. You stay safe by remembering who you are. When you don't know who you are, then you are like a lamb to the slaughter.